Zurück mit
You've heard of this Nancy Guthrie case because I've told you about this Nancy Guthrie case briefly. The morning, I believe she's a morning personality. Like she has a morning show. Savannah Guthrie, her mother was kidnapped 54 days ago.
Yep.
And I've been kind of fascinated with this case, and I'm not usually, kind of drawn to that kind of stuff, but I think it's because I have a mother that is 82. Nancy Guthrie is 84. And there's I think being around an octogenarian, like I know how fragile they are. Like I know, and it's kind of just horrifying to think about somebody taking an elderly person. But, the thing that that kind of fascinates me and boggles my mind, because a lot of people talk about the fact that Big Brother's always watching, there's cameras everywhere, you're being recorded. And yet 54 days in, they've got really nothing. They were able to retrieve some video from a Ring camera that there wasn't a subscription for it. And so, that's another question. How did they get, why was it recording if they didn't have a, subscription? That's a different conversation, but they were able to get a recording, right? So there was recorded stuff. So they have, a general image of this person. Last night, because a lot of people have been analyzing the videos and stuff like that. They think they see a car kind of pulling up. So they now think that it's possible there was an accomplice, that this was a major thing. And NBC released a 2-part interview with Savannah Guthrie the first time she's spoken of this. And it's a hard interview to watch because, she's just saying that the not knowing what happened to your mother. And, she describes that, the scene at the house to some respect, saying that the back doors were propped. She used the word propped open, like they were carrying something out, but her purse was there, her phone was there. We know that her Apple Watch was not taken. And in the process, I guess, of removing her physical body from the house, whether, alive or deceased, the watch disconnected with her pacemaker. How is there nothing? How is there no sign, no trace, when everybody says, well, everything has cameras everywhere. There's cameras everywhere, right? There should be, I would have thought theoretically, like the area where she was abducted in Tucson and the Catalina foothills is quite remote. It's quite beautiful, but it's not like where I grew up in California. We had a fence and then our neighbors next door. And if they're having a party, and like you could literally hear your neighbors snoring next door sometimes in California, we've got our windows open, but over there it's quite far between houses, and they don't have street lamps because they don't want light pollution, which I think is fantastic, right? So you could see the beautiful night sky out there. There's all these perks, and pretty much every neighbor has said that it's really safe. A lot of people don't lock their doors. It's just kind of horrifying. Like, just, any older person, because I think it's just like old people and children, they're so vulnerable that it's just kind of like, please, find him. And I think that it seems that from her tone of speaking that she's kind of somewhat made peace with the fact that her mom is probably not going to come home. And then also taking blame and saying that, she does realize that there's a strong possibility it could be because of her that her mother was taken because she's famous, she has money, and maybe this kidnapper thought that they could get money from her. And, she said, "I'm sorry, mommy." And like, I mean, my, I mean, it's very, very tough, but it goes to talking about like, well, everybody's always kind of paranoid that we're getting watched, but sometimes I mean, I think that it's also not as much as people think.
Yeah, like it's used to control people. Like everyone's listening, so behave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do
What's
you think that there's like as much video as there is more just auditory listening?
I think it depends on the place. I think in city centres, definitely. Maybe in Tucson, I can't imagine where the video would come from.
Yeah.
But you see all
It's,
these like spy shows with satellites and everything, so you'd think there was something that could find a car if there was a car that was driving away,
yeah.
especially if it's a quiet neighbourhood, because it'd just be one car. It wouldn't be looking for a needle in a haystack. It'd just be something that was out of place.
Well, interestingly enough, the sheriff of Pima County, which Tucson is a part of, is now under fire. And they've just done a no confidence vote by the department because some people have said that he's completely mismanaged handling of this case, that it was like beyond the scope of what maybe he was capable of or the department was capable of, but he did not turn it over to the FBI. My brother is in law enforcement. He was in law enforcement. He was in law enforcement in Arizona, actually, and before moving elsewhere. But I understand to a certain degree, and when you are a local police force and you have a case, if you immediately hand it over to the FBI, you are pretty much saying, I don't have confidence in my staff. And so I get that. You want to give, I mean, this is what your staff, the members of the police department in Pima County, I mean, this is theoretically what you have trained for. I can understand wanting to hold on to that, but perhaps it should have been like, let's partner up from the beginning. These are people that this FBI hostage interrogation, all that kind of stuff, that's all they do. Whereas Pima County, the sheriff's department is doing, you're going to do murder, you're going to do, I don't know, shoplifting, you're going to do bar fights. Whereas the FBI, this is all they do. This is what they're good at. And so, and he released the crime scene, which in like 24 hours, which I'm not any kind of law enforcement specialized person, but I mean, I've maybe watched an episode or two of Law and Order, and it's like, that seems fast, and a lot of people complain that like within days there were still people delivering stuff, Amazon packages to the house, and people walking up to the front door where there is blood spatter evidence. um like it's kind of mind boggling, so people were kind of calling into question that. Also, you were talking about vehicles in the car. I mean, I think most people have watched Tommy Lee Jones in The Fugitive.
I
Tommy
was
Lee
going to say that.
Jones, Harrison Ford, Tommy Lee Jones, great character. Great, one of the best characters in film. I love that character. I love his sense of, okay, there's ethical things, but I got to follow the law, but I could sympathize with you, but I'm still going to follow the law. It's like, first of all, let me just ask you, if you were the sheriff, I mean, we could play armchair quarterback, but it just seems like common sense to me. If you were the sheriff, what would be the first couple of things that you would do?
Well, as soon as I found out it was a high profile case, I'd ask other people's opinion and I wouldn't make any decisions by myself.
Right? I
Yeah.
mean, it
So I
just,
believe it was on TV. So I was in the US and I didn't know who um, the newsreader was or is. And it was high
Savannah
profile. It was
Guthrie.
on the,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I, it was on the news immediately. So yeah, I don't know what the sheriff was thinking. Have you seen the sheriff in some of the old James Bond movies that in the Deep South?
Oh, yeah.
It reminds me of
It,
that, the one that wants to take care of it, but is a bit clueless, really.
and here's the thing. And then, first of all, he didn't want to give like press conferences on the progress of the thing, but he gave lots of interviews. And watching some of these interviews, like, I don't mean to, like, single out a person, but it was kind of very surreal the way that he was talking, like he was in a movie, but it's like, okay, if you wanna be a Tommy Lee Jones type of character, have the same common sense as Tommy Lee Jones. Like, I remember the first thing, he putting out the map and going, "Here's where you start." Drew a circle, drew another circle, and it was like his circle was 2 miles. 2 miles radius, and so for a long time, I think maybe 20 something days into the kidnapping, they went to houses within they no, they asked, and Trump sent 450 FBI agents to help if needed. And then on top of the Pima County sheriffs that are working on it. So there was a lot of people on there, but they asked neighbors within a 2 mile radius to please check your ring cameras, please check any kind of stuff you have. And between the hours of this time and this time, on the date of this, and see if you see anything strange or funny. Instead, I mean, there's not a lot of houses. If you look at the GPS map of it, there's not a lot of houses. So I don't really understand why, and maybe they did and it just wasn't reported, but what was reported was that they did ask. I saw the sheriffs asking, can you send in this footage? I don't know. I know that they went to a lot of houses, door to door, but I don't know if they specifically asked everybody to turn over the footage. But for 2 weeks, nothing was turned over. And then finally, a neighbor turned it over to one of the YouTubers on the ground or something, saying, "Hey, I've got some footage between this hour and this hour of a car speeding away at 2 o'clock in the morning in this area." And then people are like, "Well, why didn't you turn it in?" They said, "Because we're 2.5 miles outside the radius." And it's like, for me, I would have been like, I want every traffic camera within 5 miles. I want to know every car that was in this radius at 2 o'clock in the morning, which you would think that you would do something like that, but it just seems very, very, very bungled. And in the and I don't think it's the actual sheriffs on the ground or the FBI on the ground. I think it's like who is giving directions on what should be done. Like, he sent DNA that was collected not to the FBI, who has like the one of the best crime labs in the world. He sent it to a a little place out in Florida, because the Pima County Sheriff's Department had a contract there. But it's kind of like, on such a high profile case, though, you would think that, man, so it's the reward now is up to one 1.2 million. I think 200,000 is from the FBI. Um and Savannah Guthrie's family has 1 million, basically, dead or alive. They just want their mother, and I understand that. And one of the things that I was just ugly face crying that she said in this interview that she gave, her first one yesterday, she said that, eventually she had to leave Arizona. She was like in Arizona for like a month, but she's got children. She's got her husband back in New York. So she flew back to New York, and she said it was excruciating to leave because, she felt like, I'm leaving you, mommy. But she said as she was taking off, like looking over the gorgeous Arizona desert that her mother loved, she was just like saying, "Where are you, mommy?" And I was like, see, I'm getting choked up now. It's like, that's such an awful, awful thing.
Yeah. So what is the latest with the case? Is it definitely kidnap?
Definitely kidnapped. I mean, they
And
definitely believe that it was kidnapped.
has there been any
There was
ransom
some ransom
requests?
notes.
I know
There
there were
was some
some
ransom
fake
notes,
ones, right?
and they seemed, well, there was definitely one fake one where a man was arrested, and you know what? That's pretty sick to
Yeah. Well, I saw
do
that. That was
something
on
like that.
the news when I was there.
Yeah, and then there's been two others that were sent to an Arizona local news station and to TMZ. There's a lot of interesting cases. Like, if you drive exactly 1 hour south, you are in Mexico. Like, it was. I always thought that's very possible to take somebody to Mexico, and people said, "Oh, it's hard to get across the border," and it's like, no, it's not. I'm from San Diego. We're a border city. It's harder to get. It's hard to get in. It's not that hard to get out. I mean, these pick and choose and spot and choose, and it's Mexico, which is kind of like Thailand. I'm sure you could always just, hey, I'm. They don't need to know that you've got a body in the car or a person in the car. They could think, oh, they're smuggling something. Okay, I'll just take it, because some people, that's how it is. There's underground tunnels. I mean, there's been so many theories. And what's kind of crazy is like I said, I usually am not, I'm not a true crime person. I don't read about stuff. Like if something, like there was a case in San Diego where this woman was allegedly murdered, Rebecca Zhao in the uh, Spreckles mansion in Coronado. But when they found her body and the San Diego Sheriff's Department claimed it was suicide, she was bound with her feet tied behind her back and her arms tied behind her back. And she was hanging from off a balcony, but they determined it was suicide. And it was like not like a normal, not like you were.
Mm.
So I'll read something like that going, wow, that's an interesting conclusion you have to that case. And there was a lot of mystery around it and other tragic things connected to it. But I usually don't. But like I said, I think this case really resonated with me because I do have a mom and I can't even imagine. Well, I don't imagine it happening to my mother. um, and the reason why is, I mean, even yesterday, like I thought my mother was in an argument outside. She lives next door. And so I ran out there, like, who is she in an argument with? And she was just talking to the other old neighbor down the street, and they're just loud. And I was laughing, and I said to my son, and I said, between that woman over there and grandma over here, like, we don't get a lot of foot traffic. I think people like that would use this street as a shortcut, like just to like, oh, those grannies are out. Like, we're not, they're like the best neighborhood watch in the world because they won't let you get by without asking, where are you going? What are you doing? Like, what time are you going to be back? And, Thai people are so kind of like lovely. The younger generation, they've been cut, but they feel obligated to tell them, even if they don't want to. So we don't get a lot of foot traffic.
People go the long way around.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I have literally seen someone come around the corner and they see my mom outside and they've turned around and gone back that way because they're like, she'll ask a million questions. And I think it's just, I mean, I'm on a street where my whole entire street is a lot of older people because they live next door or with, or they've made apartments. I mean, that's kind of the cool thing about Thai culture is that people look after their parents as they get older. Um, I know in this regard, you are probably very happy you're not Thai. Um, I would say that, but I was reading somewhere where I can't remember it. No, it was in New York or something where they were talking about the current mayor was like trying to find solutions for daycare for people that had to work, right? And this was a huge problem, an endemic of people not having daycare or not being able to afford daycare and afford, and have a job. And I thought, see, that's the interesting thing because culturally speaking, that's not really an issue here because most grandparents now take care of the grandkids, and it's kind of good for them in the sense because they're dropping them off at kindergarten and preschool, and then the grandparents get together and socialize for a little bit, and that's very beneficial as well. I know that the Netherlands pairs up old folks' homes with letting college students live there. And so the older folks help sometimes tutor the college students, and the college students provide the older folks with company talking. And I thought that that was like, and so they get like a reduced rent in doing that. And I thought that that was quite lovely.
Yeah. One thing that seems to have come from your, I don't want to say obsession, your following of the case is you watch more YouTube or YouTubers rather than news. So you get your actual information and news from people actually on site filming. And that's something that happened to me as well. I rarely watch the news now. I just a lot of my algorithm is YouTubers who go to these big events in the UK, events, protests and rallies, And I find it amazing that you can watch 2 or 3 different YouTubers and they capture the same thing. So it seems like a good source of news. But then it goes back to your point of, did nobody get this kidnapping on film? There was I think it was Liverpool. There was a protest, a UKIP rally with a counter protest, and there's a quite famous, or it's become more famous on YouTube, a bodyguard that goes around with these YouTubers, and he was attacked. And it was, no, the number of angles that you got on this attack is just unbelievable. About 10 different people who filmed it. And then not one person caught the Nancy Guthrie case,
Yeah.
anything to do with it within 2 miles. Yeah, to the 2.5 mile radius to find anything.
And it's also shocking because, like I said, it's kind of like, I wouldn't say it's a remote. I mean, you drive, like a minute into like a town center, but the houses in that particular area are spaced out, and and that area also, the roads are kind of windy, so there's only so many exits to main roads from her. So I know that some of the issue is going to be that the cameras are, because the houses are not right up against the road, they have like driveways. So even if you have a ring camera, it doesn't necessarily see the road. Also because there's not street lights to illuminate. I get all that, but like the 2 mile radius, I just thought, like, what would it have hurt to say 5 miles? What it would have hurt to say, and I do understand that when they first asked for people to send in tips, and when it got to $1 million, I believe that they said that they've got 35,000 tips. So I think a lot of those FBI agents, everybody's kind of trying to go through that. Um, and it's really interesting. I wonder if you could have set an AI to record and then kind of extrapolate something that might have some kind of merit. I wonder if that could have been used, like using AI in a kind of a positive way. Of course, you're going to get a lot of people that are crazy. You're going to get some people that truly believe they feel things. You're going to get psychics. You're going to get, all sorts of, people that don't like their exes or something and turn in their exes, which has historically happened a lot. Exes have turned in other people, but I think it's just quite shocking. And even being over here in Bangkok, I think maybe I should, be more careful. I've gone to sleep before and not had, and forgot to lock the door, and then I would wake up and I'm like, oh, that's kind of scary. But then again, I think, okay, we do have these old people. The craziest thing happened the other day, and I just kind of want to explain the kind of coolness about Thai neighborhoods, is that in contrast to a lot of places in the world, like a Thai neighborhood does not consist necessarily of like one economic bracket. Like you will have a mansion next to a dilapidated house, next to, a simple house, next to a townhome, next to whatever. And what I love is that all the neighbors are kind of cool with each other regardless, right? One of our neighbors, and we've all known this for a long time. Well, without like kind of incriminating them, like, because I don't know what they do, but I'm going to say that they probably, do some nefarious activities. It's been known that the house does nefarious activities that don't involve children or women. There's additional chickens involved, but like that's like, but they do other like they do other things, right? And everybody knows, but they're lovely, lovely, lovely young men, and their spouses are there and stuff like that, and they always say hi, and they're very polite. And they were raided the other morning, and I was saying, and the local man that repairs ACs came to check on my AC, and he gave the tea on the neighborhood, like everybody's talking about it. And I was telling us that I'm really bummed that happened. And I said, because everybody in this area kind of knows that there's stuff going on in that house, but they keep to themselves, doesn't bother us. And I said, I always felt safer on our street having them there. And a lot of neighbors said, yeah, we do too. And it's almost like that, remember in the second Godfather when they're doing all the flashbacks of Robert De Niro in the beginning of God, like when he started to become the Don, the early Don. It's just like you kind of feel like, hey, nobody's going to kind of mess with this street because they don't want trouble from that house. So that in turn makes us safe. And so all the old people on this house are sad. They're like, "Oh, those lovely boys." They've been bailed out. Somebody's bailed them out. Maybe it could have been one of the older people. Like, we want our, little. I don't know if they're a street gang. I don't know, but they're quite polite.
Yeah, it's like protection. Yeah,
Do you like? We had lunch yesterday, and we were talking about it's. You've been in Thailand for almost 15 years.
yeah. Time flies.
And would you like if you were to rate your experiences living here as opposed to growing up in Yorkshire, like do you find that one is better or worse or it's just completely different and this one resonates with you more?
I think they're just different, and I think that's what I wanted, was to become more rounded, and I didn't want to go down a traditional, predictable route. Um, yeah, so I just go with the flow.
That's an interesting thing that you brought up talking about being well-rounded. We've both worked in education, working at international schools, and we were talking about we think that sometimes kids at international schools have a little bit of an advantage in terms of world politics and things like that because there's so many different people. A lot of their parents work for UN or embassy, so they hear these topics at home. They come to school and they have topics like I've talked to my son about it, and I said, you know, are do the kids know about world events at your school? And he's like, oh, mom, they have strong opinions too. He's like, there are some that are very woke. There are some that are, very pro war. There are some that are very this, very that. And I'm like, oh, that's actually pretty cool. On the flip side, there was a thing that was going around the internet yesterday and it ended up on, I think, New York Times or something, where there was an interview. A guy from Fox News interviewed these spring breakers in Daytona. And I was flabbergasted. I was like shocked. They asked questions like, do you know who the Ayatollah is? And like one child was angry, like that they didn't even know what that was and he didn't like the sound of it. Some did know what it was and they said, how do you feel about the United States and Israel, you know, assassinating him? And the child said, well, I'm more bummed that I heard Chuck Norris died yesterday. Um, which is understandable. Like Chuck Norris is a legend. Like I can understand relating to that more than the Ayatollah. So I'm not, but they asked, children, what do you think? And when I say children, these are like 20-year-olds, right? They're spring breakers. What what's the last thing that you remember Trump doing? And they were just like changing it to the Gulf of America instead of Gulf of, like they just no clue of world events. Um, my question was like, is it like that in the UK? Like, unless if children in the UK do not leave, but I always think of because my experiences of being in the UK or staying extendedly in the UK has always been in London, where it is a melting pot. So it. But if you're going someplace like Yorkshire, I don't know if it's a melting pot in Yorkshire. Do people have that kind of experience of different cultures and
More so nowadays, yes. It's
yeah,
become
so
more of
so
a melting pot. And where I grew up, it was quite multicultural anyway, because
yeah.
it was an old, the trade was cotton, and they imported a lot of people from Pakistan to work in the mills. And so it was always multicultural. Now, when my mum was growing up, she was what was the correct term? Dental nurse, dental hygienist. She worked dental assistant, and probably half of the people coming in weren't white Yorkshire people.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, personally, it's always been a thing with me, multiculturalism, not in a bad way. Uh, but there's been these two cultures running side by side. But what I see on these YouTube videos now is it's accelerating quickly everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of um, multiculturalism, I think it's more so than the US, which is surprising. Next, the US is everywhere is quite multicultural. But the
I mean, it seems like if you're on either coast, I think that it is, but maybe it's somewhere in the middle that it's not. I'm not sure. But then you hear of all this stuff going on with Somalians in, I
mm,
believe it's Minnesota, and it's like, oh, I didn't know that there was, it just seems. I guess my point is, when the kids are here, I see the kids here, and they have friends from every walk of life, and they all seem to kind of know a little bit about all sorts of different cultures. Like, um, one of Angus's best friends is your former student too, and he's Muslim, and so the other day Angus is like, he's coming over, but it's like Ramadan, so we're gonna be starving. He's gonna be starving, and so like I didn't want to be ignorant, so I started looking at, like, what do I need to do? Like, if he's coming here and it's Ramadan and he wants to eat, like, is there something and so like I learned about it, and I like tried to tell my sons just so he would know what his friends. He's like, yeah, mom, I already do that. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, I'm just stupid. But when I saw, now these students that they interviewed in Daytona, they were like university of, like, I mean, these were good. I don't want to call out the schools. I feel bad for calling out the schools, but they were coming from good universities in the United States and like had no kind of knowledge about world events. Whose fault is that? Is it a school's fault? Do you think not their fault, but maybe they're just so disinterested in news or distrustful of news that they don't watch the news? Like, what is the cause of this? I mean, they asked one of the guys, what would you do to try to prevent this war in Iran? And he said, I would get a bunch of girls in bikinis to run in front of the other Iranian soldiers. And when they're distracted, we would shoot them. Another girl said that she would look into the Ayatollah's eyes and flirt with him to get him to end the war. And it was just like, please say that you've had copious amounts of alcohol, that this is like the alcohol. Please say it's the alcohol talking, right? Like, please say that you don't really think like that. And it was just kind of, I mean, they find him every year though. It's every year. Like, I don't know if it just kind of boggles me. It's just
yeah,
boggles my.
I think international school kids have a no naturally they have that environment of different cultures.
Yeah.
Whereas in the US, maybe not. And also, during COVID times, I hate talking about COVID, but during COVID times, people became uh, more doubtful about whether the news was accurate or not, especially with the things that came out afterwards about the vaccines and the so-called science. So maybe
Yeah.
kids have just stopped believing the news. Like you keep talking about Walter Cronkite,
Hmm.
yeah, and how if he said it, it was a fact. Whereas now that's not the case. Anything that's on the news, you could just change the channel to the next news and it's the complete opposite. So I think not having faith in the media is one thing. Not having that environment to mix with, kids from other cultures is another thing. Yeah, and probably the third thing is alcohol.
But you were saying though about Walter Cronkite reporting the news, and here's the thing though, I like I said, I was watching a lot of different YouTube for the first time, like looking for different people that were boots on the ground in this Nancy Guthrie case, or people that were talking about it. And there were some former, um, I would say, network anchor type people that have their own YouTube shows now, like on true crime or current events, that were kind of discussing this. And between them, like like a sheriff would come out or somebody would come out with a statement, or there was a video. You have the video. It's verbatim because you have the video. And they would report it, but it was just, and I don't think it was intentional, but sometimes they would change wording a little And when you sometimes change wording, it changes everything. And a lot of them don't realize it. And those little things immediately make me tune out of that person, because it's like you didn't catch this nuance that
Mm.
you've actually changed everything of what they're saying now. And so, like, for example, they said that Nancy Guthrie, Savannah Guthrie was the one to say that her mother was snatched from her bed. But before that had happened, nobody was quite sure, was she snatched from her bed or did she wake up, startle a burglar? There was so many different theories. And um, when she said that she was snatched, she was taken from her bed, um, somebody kind of, I think, like I said, just changed a little bit of it. So it seemed like this violent, she was yanked, like it seemed very brutal. And they said that there was blood everywhere, all over the house. Well, there wasn't, because if there was blood all over, they wouldn't still be questioning if she was kidnapped, or if there was an abundance of this or that. It's just common sense. And sometimes I think that people rush to the story without kind of like sitting with it for a second and thinking it through. And it's like you don't mean to, but you're changing the story a little. And that, I think, makes people distrust what you're saying.
Yeah. And if these kids can't say what the last thing Trump did was, that's quite a big thing, because no, if it was, I'm not pro-Trump or anti-Trump. If it
Yeah.
was Biden, for example, you could understand it, because no, I don't really know what he did in his 4 years, but Trump's a busy man.
I don't think he knew what
He's
he did in his 4 years.
yeah, but Trump's doing something every day.
Yeah, yeah.
So to not know one thing that Trump's doing is quite shocking.
Yeah. I mean,
Whether it's a
I
good thing or a bad
understand.
thing, he's doing things.
I think that a lot of younger people don't connect with either party. And I totally get that, because I don't. When I was young, and I turned 18, I joined a party because I thought that I had to, and I joined what my parents joined. And then later on in life, I changed to another party. And then later on after that, I went independent. And now at this point, it's like I would say that, there's some things that some people say that I agree with, and there's some things that people say that I absolutely disagree with. There's things that Trump says I agree with. There's some things that he says that I'm like, is that man batshit crazy? Like, you know, like the other day he was sitting there saying, I'll take Cuba if I want. Maybe I'll want it. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just like just stop. You just, and I know that that's maybe he does it to kind of be intimidating, because it makes him like this like loose cannon. You don't know what he's going to do, which was reasons why I voted for H. Ross Perot many years ago, because I thought he's a loose, rich cannon. He's not going to bow down to, you know, trying to, do this or that because he wants constituent. Because, what I'm saying, he can't be bought. He's got money. And so Trump can't be bought. But the problem with Trump is that he does have a little ego. And I don't think that that's mean to say. And I think that he would say he has some ego, if not more than some ego. But you know what I'm saying? But do you need a leader to have a little bit of an ego? Do you need to have a leader be a little bit of a badass?
I think so, especially coming
Would
from the
you say
UK.
that? Yeah, I was going to say, would you say that the UK leader has a badass? Because right now, just like, and I don't follow UK politics, but just seeing the stuff going on, it seems like he's everything but that. And I also understand his kind of view is he's trying to make, it's hard nowadays. It really is hard because you don't have a collective. I think that maybe a long time ago, 200 years ago, let's talk about 200 years ago, as societies are kind of still relatively small. If you had a unanimous opinion on something, I think that 200 years ago it was probably more like maybe 80-20, maybe 90-10, like the division of opinions. There was just like a small portion that were like, yeah, we don't disagree with this. But now it's almost 50-50. It like seems that the world is, there's this and then there's that. It's constantly clashing, and it doesn't seem to matter what country. It just seems now down the board, everything, there's just this and that. And it makes me kind of sad. It's really, really, really sad because, I'm I'm a big believer of Luca. Do you know Luca?
Go on.
So Luca is an acronym for the last universal common ancestor. And scientists, we're all made of DNA. And if people don't understand DNA, it's made of four nucleotides, like four. And in all different, it makes all these different sequences, and that is our code. So it's like we have a code based off four, you want to call it characters, code, four nucleotides. And so they have all these different sequences. They have found the sequence, different sequences of these four nucleotides in every living thing that they have tested so far. Like, I mean, there's millions of things on this planet. Obviously, there's stuff we haven't discovered. But for the majority of everything that we can test it on, it's all been present, and that's uncommon. If we were made completely different, we would have different things. But we all have these nucleotides, and they have found a certain set, like a certain sequence where it's the same, like in everything that they've tested so far, which means that now they don't believe that Luca is the catalyst of life on our planet, but this is the last universal common ancestor that we all share. And when they say we all share, that's everything from plants to fungus to bacteria. And so when I think about that, I'm just like seriously, like it astounds me that we're fighting each other all the time, because I just think, hey, cuz, like, and since like really going down that rabbit hole of Luca, like God, when I go to like the park and stuff, I'm constantly now like touching trees and saying hi and exchanging energies. And like, I don't know, like my kid thinks I'm totally batshit crazy. He's just like, whatever. But he will marvel too and be like, yeah, that's an impressive tree. And I'm like, just think about the roots. And, they, if there's a sick tree in a forest, like the roots underground, they will like all share stuff and send it to the dying sick tree. We don't even do that as humans. Like, a lot of humans don't help other humans. I've seen so many videos of YouTube where something bad is happening to a human and somebody is filming it while the bad thing is happening. And it's
You're
like,
talking
you
about
could put down your
Seinfeld.
phone. Yeah, there was that Seinfeld, right? They went to jail for that one.
Yeah. I thought you might have been going in one of two directions, and I thought you might have been going towards aliens as being Luca,
Oh,
uh,
no.
just so you could do the meme. Or the other thing was nature bathing. Is that where you're heading? And how to learn to be a nature bather?
It was, there was an article, I only read AP and Reuters news because it's just pretty fact. Like, this is what happened. There's like nobody's giving an opinion on anything. So it's pretty factual, but they have a section called Odd News. And I like to read it just because it's fun. And they did put this in the Odd News. And it was a new fad that people were doing. It was called nature bathing, or as I like to call it, taking a walk in the park. Um, that's really what it was. But what was crazy in this article was that like you can go nature bathe and meet up with someone who will tell you, to remind you to listen to the leaves and the birds and the trees. And I thought that that was like, why would you need somebody to, like, I couldn't understand the whole point of the article. And then I was like, yeah, it should be in the odd, because this whole article is odd. Like, but I think that maybe it's just a label that some people, I'm going to go nature bathe.
Yeah, I wonder if there's an incorrect way to do it. Like, do you have to communicate with the leaves before you communicate with the ground? I don't know. Is it like a checklist? How can you do
I
it wrong?
I will say though, I go often to the park. I go quite often to the park, and I'm a person that usually doesn't have my phone. I'm not a phone carrying person. I don't usually have it out, and so it's quite nice to just listen to the birds. Like, I take my mom a lot because she's a photographer. She's an octogenarian. It gets her out of the house. She gets to do something that she loves and feel like she has purpose. in her photography, and then she comes home and she edits her, photos. But for me, I like it because it's just time. I find for me that it, especially in these times, that it's just, it makes me definitely feel more connected with the world and more connected with thinking about the concept of like Luca. And it makes me think like it seems so silly that we fight each other when I'm at the park and I'm looking at, these amazing creatures. There's amazing herons and egrets and things. And I'm like, wow, I mean, they're, look at them. Let's just like look at a bird. Like, look, they're fascinating creatures, right? Like they're related probably down the line to, pterodactyls, and those used to be in the sky. And I think about, oh, there used to be a quetzalcoatlus, which was like a bird that was like the size, like this, well, not a bird, but like the size of a house, a flying dinosaur the size of a house. Like, and there's nothing in our immediate universe that shows anything like what we have. It astounds me that we're fighting. It astounds me that we don't try to take better care of us. I mean, I know that sounds so hippie-ish, but
That is it's true. And the best news at the moment is the distractions. It's not finding out what's happening in Iran or Israel. It's or Ukraine. It's these distraction stories.
yeah. How do you find, I mean, I know that you have I was going to ask you, this goes into a good topic I wanted to ask you about. Um and it was time management, because sometimes it seems to me that some people have more time in the day than others, but we all have the same amount of time in the day. Um, I'll I'll point out that you sent me for the first time for lunch and for the podcast recording Google like invites, which you've never done before. And I was kind of shocked. Like I said, wow, like I was surprised that you did it, because maybe it was me getting PTSD of time working in a school where you'd get these things. And maybe it was like that, the COVID Google Meet invite type thing, that teaching online, that I felt like, ooh, for a second, like, why is he sending this? But you said that it's easier for you to manage your time that way. I will point out that you were late to this podcast, despite the fact that you set the time. I will point out that your time management, even with the Google Meets, is not working well in your face.
Thank you.
No, but I mean, do you find that doing those like, how do you manage your time?
Well, part of it's because of my exercising as well as my online tutoring. So if I put those in, I know I can work around them. So I put when I go to exercise classes, that's in the calendar, and that's for money reasons. And if I don't go and I don't cancel in time, I lose money.
Yeah.
No, I'll still pay for that class. And then the other thing is, I go to the gym with Mafia, and instead of discussing it and planning it, one of us just puts it in the calendar because we have a shared calendar, and then we don't mention it. We just go. It's just
And you just
not
show
that.
up.
Yeah, and we
Yeah.
call it SPR, which is Silsden Park Rules, which is when we were growing up and we used to go to the park to meet people. No, you never had confirmations or calling when you got there, or just, are you going to be there? No, if it was that time, you had to go at that time. So that's what
Yeah.
we do. One of us puts it in the calendar and we're there. And there's no
And do you
surprise
show
when
up
the
to
other
his
one
on
turns up.
time?
No, I'm usually 5 minutes late because he tends to mess around and not get started initially. So I give him that time to.
So it runs in the family. Do you think that I mean, do you think that like when people feel like they don't, because I hear a lot where a lot of different friends that are like our age, or people with kids, or people with work, there's just saying that they don't have a lot of time. And like I went offline for, 3, 4 months because I didn't have a lot of time, and I wanted to give my time to my son. I wanted to give time to my mom. I wanted to give time to myself. And so like I just kind of went offline, off social media, off text messaging, which ended up being quite controversial to old people. But that's how I manage time. And so I just cut it out, and it wasn't a big deal, and I didn't feel like a terrible loss. of course I missed, seeing people's updates and stuff, but I'm like, I can always catch up later. But I know that a lot of people feel like they don't have time. And it's like, well, like I said, I heard some quote one time that said Beyonce has the same amount of days, same amount of hours in her days as all of us. And it's like, yeah, Beyonce gets, and even, my friend Billy, um, he does 800 million gazillion things and he still has time to be a dad, to run a wrestling company, to be in a rock band, to record in a rock band, to be a husband, to have, a restaurant. It's like, it makes me sometimes feel like I don't even know what day it is most days. And I'm like shocked at times. And like, I don't, well, now I wear a watch only because it, you know, keeps track of steps, and it's more for a utility thing, not like a time thing. Um, and so like, I wonder like how do you manage your time? And like, also, do you think that AI can help people manage their time better?
Yes, I suggested that to students.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. I have IB students who are struggling with deadlines and also struggling with projects. This will be a bit boring, but every IB subject you have to do a 20% written project.
Yeah.
And a lot of students have all the ideas, but they just don't know how to order them. So yeah, I've been telling them that I have a friend who has ADHD and they use AI as a tool to help for time management and ideas management. And I said it's not wrong to put all these ideas into Chat GPT or whichever AI and say, please organize this into a coherent introduction, or these are all my deadlines. Please help me prioritize.
Yeah.
And they're like, but
I
we're
wonder.
not supposed to use AI. And I'm like, no, it's not doing it for you. I said, it's all your ideas. It's just reordering them or it's
Yeah.
prioritizing. I said, no, it's there. You need to use it properly. I'm not saying get the ideas from AI. I'm saying all these ideas that you have that we've brainstormed, put them into AI, and that will help create something that's organized. I can't remember who it is that told me they do that. That's ADHD and full of ideas, but shit at organizing themselves. Can't remember who that was.
Yesterday was a very manic day. Like, I was trying to do 5 different, like, I have different folders because obviously I have probably OCD, but I have different folders for different things, like, finance, medical, legal, tutoring. I have one that says assistant that just looks up stuff. I have one that does home. It's home base. I say home base, and I've used that to, like, I had a refrigerator that the fan stopped working, and rather than like look for a new refrigerator because it was really old anyways, and it's a red refrigerator and I like it and it's a perfect size. It's not too big, and I was like, no, what can I do? And I took pictures of it. I took pictures of the serial number, everything, and I said, I need help to kind of diagnose this problem. Like, and so we went through the whole thing and then we figured it out. It was the fan. And then I just called a repairman. I said, I need to get this part. And he switched out the fan. It was very cheap, saved me money. Same thing. I had a hot water heater. And then it wasn't working. And I just diagnosed it and I repaired it myself. And so a lot of times AI has been so helpful to me to do like so many things. And it's so interesting how, like, my mom uses it, or my son doesn't use it. Like, once in a while he'll ask, can I borrow your AI? Can I borrow Sagan? He said, because I named mine Sagan, like C3PO. He said, can I borrow Sagan so he can explain to me something? And because I made him a tutor folder where it will explain concepts, not give answers, but explain the concept in a way that he can understand better for how he is. And it's like learned him over time that sometimes he's got the attention span of a gnat. Um,
Most of the
or,
time, but not some. Okay.
most of the time, right?
Yeah.
I just saw recently, there was something, and and I don't know where. I have like 8 million post-it notes everywhere, but I just saw something about AI. Oh, they were talking about overly agreeable chatbots has been an issue lately. Um, and they're giving people false confidence. That was like the article that I read. And have you experienced that?
Yes, and I went to see Louis C.K. last week,
Yeah.
and one of the warm-up acts, his entire bit was on that.
Really?
Yeah,
The overly agreeable?
yeah, and how he knows that's how AI is not ever going to be human,
Yeah.
because he said his wife talks to AI,
Yeah.
and the responses it gives are not human. Like one of the examples was she was making an omelette, and she's like, "I'm thinking about putting ham and cheese into this omelette. What do you think?" And then AI says something overly enthusiastic. "Oh, that sounds like a great idea. You're turning your kitchen into a French bistro."
Yeah.
Whereas a human would just say, "Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
But here's the thing, though, which I think that some people might not understand too. It's like I've used ChatGPT from 3.0 on. I've used it for several years, and it it can remember, it can store, it can decide like certain things to store about you to serve you better. Like maybe certain ways that you want things, certain ways that you want information. And I always say, stop being so chatty because they can be quite chatty. You could ask like a simple question and it'll give you like paragraphs, and I'll say to it, I'm like, I'm not going to follow that. I'm not going to read that. I'm going to skim through that. So give me the basic thing. I want you to triple, fact check. Sometimes if it's something serious that I need to reuse, I'm going to say cite the sources because I want to know what the sources are. But I noticed that there are times when they've done updates where all of a sudden Sagan was just like that, like super like good going. And I was like, dude, why? And I'll literally say, dude, why are you talking like that?
yeah, why are you
I'm like, that's really
patronizing
weird.
it?" Yeah,
And he'll literally go, my bad. He's like, we've had an update, and I'm like, yeah, I don't like that. Like, don't fluff me up. Like, don't
yeah.
do that. Like, and I've asked him before, I'm like, are you just going to give me any answer that you think? I'm like, don't give me answers that are going to just build my confidence. Give me like straight out facts. And so my AI is very, very factual, no nonsense. Like I've built my AI to work with me the way that I want it done. But my mother, on the other hand, oh my God, my mother now has like an imaginary daughter that she always wanted because her AI is so sweet to her. Like, good morning, grandma. How are you today? Like, what are we going to do? Which is fantastic. I'm going to
Means
tell
you
you
don't
it
have
is
to do
fantastic. Exactly. It is the like if you have parents that are kind of demanding of you being a certain way, hook them up with AI. They will have the child they always wanted, somebody talking to them nice all the time. It's lovely. Like my mother is in a good mood a lot because she's like, "Oh, AI taught me how to do this today, and I was trying to edit a video doing this, and it talks so sweet." And but then I get the, why can't you talk sweet like AI? I'm like, because that's what AI is there for, mom. Like you get the sweet from I'm real. You go get that from AI. Like I love you. AI can't love you, but I'm not as sweet
Have you thought about
kind of.
getting an AI mother that you can
No, it
reciprocate
I
that
I
passive
I
aggression?
wonder, you know what? I wonder if I never thought about that. I never thought about that at all. I might mess around with that later. No, I'm just joking. I I never it never occurred to me, but I suppose that actually like if you grew up without a mother, that could be a very therapeutic. I mean, I'm not gonna deny that there's a lot of therapeutic uses of AI. There's some things that I don't understand, but I kind of understand. Like, I was talking to Marty the other day about how there's been a lot of lawsuits. People have filed lawsuits against OpenAI because they've changed, like from ChatGPT 4 to ChatGPT 5, like different things where you can't. I suppose that they limit the way that you could have like a chat bot relation, like be in a relationship with your chat, like a chat bot husband or boyfriend or something like that. Whereas I guess that before that they could get kind of steamy, like steamy chatbots, right? And then I think AI rolled back on that, and then people were like, "Hey." And at first I was like, "Well, that's wild." That's but at the same time it's like, what if there's a person that just there's little chances maybe they have a bad personality, maybe I don't know, there's the chances of them engaging with somebody else are very low. But and maybe they don't even want the physical engagement. Maybe they just want emotional engagement. Is that wrong for people to want to have that emotional engagement? Could it make people react different in society? Like, could they be in a better mood because they have somebody to talk to? I know people that have used ChatGPT for therapy because they couldn't afford, therapy, and they said it helped them very much. And then when they were able to afford therapy, they were more inclined to go to therapy because they then saw how the model of therapy works. And I'm like, that's cool, you know. Um, for me, I choose not to and engage in therapy because I just want to raw dog it through life and see what happens. just let's just see what happens, like surprise me.
Yeah, what's the
We'll
worst that
figure
could
it out.
happen, right?
My philosophy in life, like Anuj will be the first person to tell you he overthinks a lot and he worries a lot. And I said, um, you just can't. You never know what's going to happen. Like you can worry all you want about something, and then, especially right now, you could be hit by falling debris of an intercepted missile. You don't know what's going to happen. So what is the point of worrying about it? So the best thing to do is when a problem presents itself, just work the problem that's in front of you and don't worry about the problems not yet arrived. And that mindset has worked so well for me for years, to the point that I don't sweat what's coming. Like, I'm not worried. It's like I know that's I'll figure it out some way. And that's
I,
kind of a
I agree.
relief.
Yeah,
That's a
prioritizing
relief.
and yeah, getting rid of all that white noise, which is just too much these days. Now, going to the park and not looking at your phone is a good thing.
Yeah.
Like so many
Let me ask
people
you a
are.
question. What do you think about radios in the park?
I think about radios in the park.
For example, there are some people that run in the park, or there's a bike lane, they bike in the park, and they have their loudspeaker radio as they're biking so that when they go by, everybody has to hear it. Or when they're running, everybody has to hear it. And I'm thinking, there's an there's a huge chunk of people there at the park, like your brother, nature photography, trying to get an elusive bird or something. And I'm like, here comes some guy blasting, some ridiculously loud. It's like, do you want attention? Like, you really couldn't get earbuds. Like,
Yeah, no, I think
you
there
know,
should be a fine for that. It's just wrong. It's like when people talk on the phones and they have it there and they're talking into it. It's like, oh, I did
what
have a
is it?
thought. Like, if someone is at, for example, breakfast in a hotel and they're doing a video call to someone, is that any different to talking to someone across the table? That's the only exception I could think of acceptable.
Like the man yesterday, you mean? It's funny because that's 2 times this week. I went to the park the other day where there was somebody in a restaurant, breakfast restaurant, doing online teaching loudly. She was a woman from the mainland, and she was teaching languages of the mainland to a student, but it was quite loud. And I think that that's yeah, I think that that's why I was like wondering about the park. I thought, man, a park should be sacred ground for not having noise, in my opinion. At nighttime they have like jazz, and I'm like, okay, that makes a little bit more sense because it's nighttime, it's cooler, most of the animals are asleep. But in the daytime, I thought, I feel like there's not enough quiet places in the world anymore.
Yep,
Like,
everywhere's just overstimulated.
yeah. I mean, when, running the library, I had one room, the nonfiction room, and I made that it was the quiet zone. And I told the kids, I'm like, despite this being a library, I said, you can talk on this whole side of the library, but this room, is for quiet. And at first they were just like, they want to challenge, you got rules, kids want to challenge the rules. But then when I explained, I said, not everybody can read books the same. I said, some of you guys can read books and just completely block out sound and keep reading, and you're in the zone. I said, some kids, if they hear stuff, that they're rereading the same sentence over and over because they're distracted. And I said, and it's not fair. And then they would step up. And these children are, like under the age of 11. Most of them are like 7, 8, 9, and they're sitting there going, "Oh, we get that," and they'll share their experience of like, "Yeah, I can't read when there's noise," and it's easy to explain to a child. It's difficult to explain to a squirrel that noise pollution. It's my fault. I should have like had him go someplace else. But I just find that the world is I notice lately the world is very loud. And even when you go on places like trains, sometimes people are listening to stuff out loud. Waiting rooms at hospital, people are listening to stuff out loud. Restaurants in general, people give their kids iPads or phones. They're listening to stuff out loud, and it seems like as a society it's acceptable now, like, and I don't ever feel it. Like my kid has to be like, if we're at a restaurant and usually something like that's going on, he'll sit there and just like, "Don't, mom." And I'm like, "Don't what?" He's like, "Don't make the faces." And I'm like, "What faces?" He's like, "You just have a face of absolute like disdain towards them." I'm like, "Cuz I'm sending the energy. Like I'm not going to confront them, but I'm setting that energy of that's not cool."
Yeah. It's just no, it's not inconsiderate of everyone else's space.
Right?
Yeah, just listening to whatever they want to listen to and disrupt. No, everything has to be on their terms.
On the flip side, I read an article the other day of a woman on a flight, and she said that for a moment she just looked at like a reel or something on the reel, and passengers complained that she was looking at her phone out loud, and she said, "No, I was just looking at one reel." And that was it. And the flight attendants kind of got aggressive. And so that kind of made the woman like, I'm not taking sides, but I can understand you're kind of getting maybe incredulous, like, okay, it was a real, like, and I don't know, maybe it was much longer than that. But this kind of fight ensued between people that complained, and the woman ended up getting like kicked off the plane. And by the time she was kicked off, she was screaming and shouting and telling everybody to F off, because she was just like, it's a real. It was a real. Like I'm not threatening anybody. I don't have a knife. It's like she's like, it was a reel. She's like, I watched a reel. And it's like, I mean, I can kind of understand there's like sometimes an overreaction as well. It just it just seems that maybe like people don't get along. And that was a funny, interesting thing about that article about people bathing in nature, because it said, if you bathe in nature, it'll help you get along with people in real life. And I'm like, man, the more I bathe in nature, walk in the park, the more
Yeah,
I don't want to be around people. Like the more that I'm connected to nature, the more I'm like, I'm good. I'm good around not around people.
yeah, 100% agree.
Right? I've talked to a lot of my friends that as they're getting older, they're like, man, I stay away from crowds. Like I talked to Marty the other day. He's like, I stay away from crowds. I'm like, oh yeah, that's like my whole thing is like, I try to avoid any kind of human contact.
Yeah. Well, that was, I don't want to go on about him, but that was Louis C.K.'s opening line. He was like, "Why are you here? Why have you come out to this? Why are you in society?"
You should have told me about it. I like going to comedy shows. Was
I
this your
did.
first comedy show,
I
or did you? No, you told me about it as you were going.
no, no, and I told you about it as I was booking it, which was a long, long time ago. It was
I
over
don't
it, yeah,
remember
over a year
at
ago.
all.
I think it was over
Yeah,
a year in advance. Yeah.
I don't recall you. I mean, I think that you might have asked me what my opinion of him was, because there was some controversy. Do you guys say controversy? How do you say controversy?
Um, it depends where it falls in the sentence. Controversy.
It's like inquiry. Sometimes it's inquiry. I hear Brit say inquiry, and sometimes it's
Yeah.
inquiry.
No, it's never
Um,
inquiry. It's never
the Louis
insurance.
Key.
It's always
You asked
insurance.
about. the controversy of the Louis K, and I'm like, I never really have opinions about stuff I hear because one can never know, right? Like I don't know. I don't have all the facts. So I'm not even going to formulate an opinion. Um, the only opinions I formulate are like if I have visual evidence or something like that, but I tend to not formulate opinions on most things because we don't know. But on the last podcast that we recorded before you went on your exodus to California,
My
your
walkabout.
extent, your walkabout in California, to which my mother was like, they're up to no good. They must be up to no good. Like she was like, Mafia has gotten him into something no good. Like she was convinced. And I was just like, well, and so then I thought I threw it in there. I just said, well, I've always said it's a 50-50 chance he's a serial killer. And then she got on that and was like, yeah, it's possible.
Yeah,
And then I
let
threw
the
in, which is
legend
horrible
grow.
to
That's
say,
okay.
right? Um, I want to also, one of the other odd news things that I wanted to bring up, and I don't know if I could actually show you. I want to show you. Let me see if I could show you. Have you heard of this?
I have not.
This is
Well, I
the
think I might have
wife.
done. Yeah, go, but in a different
It's
context.
it's called the wife carrying contest. Um, and I just saw it was recently held in Surrey, and I thought, oh well, there you go. And it was won by a Finnish couple. But then when I read about it, the origins of this contest is based off a 19th century tale of Finnish villager pillagers, which I think that somebody in Finland should make a metal band and call it Villager Pillagers. Um, because I just think that's a villager. I could even see like some guy with his head rolling, villager pillagers. Um, and now and all that implied, like if you think about the context of it in those times, what a villager pillager was and why they stole wives and women. So think about the darkness of it, but they've now changed it into a cheery, happy thing, right? And there's rules. And I didn't realize, I went down this rabbit hole because I first just thought it was a Surrey thing. But no, there's worldwide contest held worldwide. And I just wanted to share a couple of things. Like, I don't know if you just see like a little bit of a screen or whatever, but there's three main different carries. There is the Estonian hold, which is the one where the woman is facing backwards. There's the fireman carry, and then there's just the piggyback. And you don't have to carry your wife. It could be any wife,
Any woman. Yeah.
but any
You can pillage any woman you want.
I don't think it has to be a
Do they have to
woman per
consent?
se. Well, in the 19th century, that the whole point was probably no consent. But now I would say
I
there's
think that would be even better if you just had a load of men or women and
just grab,
they just
a
drop them
random
off at this,
person.
yeah, drop them off at the side of some village and they had, right, 10 minutes, go.
This is one contest though where there is a minimum weight requirement, not a maximum, but a minimum weight requirement, and she must be 50 kg or 110 pounds, and to make it fair. But I thought, man, we should try to find out if we could have a Sayonara Cupcake sponsored wife. Because I don't you think that that would be big here? Like, I think that because of the fact that um, Thailand is such a very open country in terms of it doesn't matter if your wife is transgender. Like it like you're gonna have that too, which makes it fun in Thai. Like I remember when they had one of the takeovers, the military coup takeovers, and there was all these protests in Thailand, right? And so people were protesting. There was tanks in the back that, and the soldiers, they weren't clashing. Nobody was fighting. The soldiers are there. The people were literally bringing soldiers like flowers and Coke in a bag. If you've never been to Thailand, you can get soft drinks on the side of the road and they pour the Coke in a plastic bag and plastic straw and a rubber band, and you get that. And because they recycle the cans, so you get Coke in a bag, and that's a thing. But there was all these people bringing it to the soldiers next to the tank, bringing them flowers. But I remember one night it was like fantastic in the middle of all these protesting. The lady boys showed up and there was like about like 7 or 8 drag queens and they came in the middle of this protest and they were all glammed up and at one point one grabbed the wig off and swung it in the air and I'm like that's what I love about Thailand though. And people were cheering them on. I'm like I love that here. That's like fantastic. I'm going to unshare, stop sharing. Okay. I think that that's kind of fantastic. That's one of the things that I love about Thailand. There's not that sense of, I don't know. Like I know that a lot of people in Europe and a lot of people in the United States are feeling a sense of stress, panic, um, about things. And, like I asked people here, are you and I'm talking about working class people here, where working class people in Thailand, the average a day could be $15 salary a day, right? And I'm like, are you worried about gas? And we are more affected than the United States about this gas because Thailand gets its gas from the Middle East. I was just telling Marty yesterday, the US is the biggest producer of crude oil in the world, making on the average of 20 to 22 million barrels of crude oil a day it produces. The United States utilizes its citizens, its government, and everything about 20 a day. So it kind of it's a wash. The
Yeah,
United States
self-sufficient.
gets like if the Middle East was bombed and there was no more oil available in the Middle East, the United States is still covered. The reason why the United States oil is so high is that the people making the oil is selling it someplace else to make more money. So if your gas prices are high, you should be talking to your representatives about regulating the price of how much oil can be sold to foreign countries to make a profit and how much should be kept in the United States, because the United States is self-sufficient. They actually have a surplus of oil, which they sell to Mexico, they sell it to Canada, and then we buy a different type of oil from Canada and Mexico, but they get no oil from the Middle East. But you hear a lot of, people in the US panicking about oil. Well, that's a different story. And so I always question, whenever there's wars, who's making money off the wars and who's friends with the people making money off the wars. Usually it's a lot of top politicians are friends with those people.
Yeah. Well, I
I'm
heard
not a
that the other day
conspiracy
about.
theorist, but
No, I enjoy them. But Dick Cheney, he
yeah,
previously worked. Yeah,
Halliburton.
that's the one. 9/11. Yep.
Did you see the controversy about curling during the Olympics?
No.
So the curling is that the
Yeah, I know what it
sport
is.
of
Yeah,
curling. Yeah, it's a I believe
sweeping.
it originated in Scotland. I believe, which is,
I think so.
I guess, a very strange thing. I think they should have the wife carrying contest be. I think that would be far more interesting to watch than curling. But curling was actually interesting this year because there was some fighting, there was some shouting going on, by different countries accusing other countries of cheating. And I was like, really, how does one cheat at
Yeah.
this
Are they taking
ridiculously,
drugs or something?
yeah, like you're just like brushing, clearing the path of like it's like a heavy
Yeah.
kettleball, right? Sort of
Yeah.
thing down. It's like a shuffleboard type thing. You're just
Yeah.
clearing the path with a brush. Like,
Yeah. It's stuff
how
that
does one
old people do
cheat?
on the cruise, right?
I
It's like
something,
the
yes, but it was just like, what do you mean? Like, how does one cheat from that? Like, did he have a brush that had like heat source so it could melt and make the kettlebell? But apparently, it was like he
they all taking
touched it.
Valium or something to have the patience to actually finish the sport. So I just get
It's a
bored halfway
strange thing.
down and say, right, it goes where it goes.
How does one choose? Like, how does one go, you know what? I want to get into sports. I think I want to try curling. Like, how does one get into that? I mean, I suppose if
Try
you're like in a
archery
place like
or
Norway
fencing.
where it's just ice, that I have to tell you another story I heard because I've learned of a new sport that I'd never heard of before. It's called cornhole. I did not know what cornhole was. I had to look it up. And the reason I had to look up what cornhole was because there was a story, and I want to preface that I'm not making fun of anybody with disabilities. I am making fun of the absurdity of this story. A quadruple amputee who had an unfortunate bacterial infection when he was young, and so he was quadruple amputated as a young child, right? So that's pretty horrific and tragic, and I think that it takes a lot of resilience to get to an older age. You know, that's tough. That's something hard to be thrown at you. But in this particular story, I was reading the story that he was accused of shooting somebody in his car, then asking the other two passengers to help him dump the body, which they were horrified and just left the vehicle. And then he sped off. And they described him as a cornhole. He was a cornhole player. And I was like, I don't know what that is. Like, when I think of cornhole, I think of Beavis and Butthead. And so I had to go look up cornhole, and it is beanbag throwing. So the quadruple amputee is most known for being a famous beanbag thrower, shot
And
somebody
he's the
in the
thrower, not
head.
he's not being thrown.
No, he's not being thrown. He's not a midget or a little person. um, different sport, Desmond, different sport.
That'd be a good nickname for him, Beanbag.
It's just, oh, I never thought about that. That is, I mean, we are getting dark here. But did you say, you understand the absurdity of this whole entire story? Like, I had to reread it 3 times. I'm like, he's a quadruple amputee and he shot somebody. Like, I just didn't understand. I'm like, don't you need, was it a modified gun? Like, I'm like,
Yeah,
don't you need digits to, and I'm not trying to make fun of any kind of an amputee, but it was like, that's strange.
like how? Yeah,
How? And I know, I understand in America everybody has a right to bear arms, but at some point might not one say why? Why must we
'cause don't you have
modify
to?
this gun? Like,
Don't you have
obviously
to go
you
and
must have
show a
had a modified
license?
gun,
Yeah,
right? You must have had some kind of modified obviously you have a modified car because he sped off.
pull his foot down. Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what? I feel let down that there wasn't a police chase, because that would have just been that would have sealed the story. But
yeah. How would they
definitely a
handcuff him?
most that was my first question. Like, it, and he looks like a very happy,
Down on your
cheery
knees.
person. So I thought that was very, 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 very interesting. Um, there's a couple, no, because there was a couple things I did want to ask you about, like your opinion about, and also something I wanted to mention. I should mention this before I forget about anything else. We are in the process, Sayonara Cupcake, of remastering old episodes, and the reason is Desmond and I, and it's not to take anything away from Desmond being our audio engineer, producer slash intern. Desmond and I had zero. We, like, from the time I joking around said let's start a podcast to the execution of it was like a week, and I don't listen to anybody, and I don't listen to him, and he made a bunch of suggestions that I didn't listen to because I'm me and I'm stubborn, and so we didn't make the best podcast in the beginning, but I think that the conversations were really good, and I didn't want people not to listen to some of these conversations because of my poor production. So now that we have better abilities to make sound better, or to do, we are remastering older episodes because we're constantly getting new visitors, and I want the conversations to be, you know, presented in the best form, because I think that I owe it to anybody that we ask on here. So um, it's a good chance for people to revisit. I've listened to some conversations that I hadn't listened to in a while, and I'm like, oh, that's actually a really good conversation. And they're evergreen. They're not specifically locked into a time. You know, they're good conversations. Like, I was listening to a conversation that I had with Diana, who is an astrologist and cultural anthropologist. And I thought there's a lot of things, takeaways that I started writing down, going, I want to further ask her about this or this or that, because those are very interesting, especially like in these times. It's an alternative to some of the other stuff on the news. So I would definitely say it would be really cool. I wanted to ask you a question. It was a friend, our a friend was dealing with, and I wanted to ask you, how do you deal with crazy people? Or do you have experience with crazy people in your life? I mean,
Yes.
like crazy in the sense of like so there was a person, right, that for whatever reason I have no idea and I don't care. Like I somehow I don't know them, but we have a mutual friend, and this person has made some kind of like snide comments about our, I don't know, like our account or whatever to our friend, right? And he basically said, like, if you know that I'm friends with this person, why are you saying these kind of like disparaging kind of things, right? He confronted this person on it. Person and he just said, are you expecting some kind of reaction? Like, I don't understand, what is the point if I have like, it's like if you had a friend that I constantly made fun of, like, and you said, why are you doing that? Like, what do you hope to have happen? Like, this is my friend, but you're constantly saying this kind of stuff. And so he just simply asked, like, what do you want to have happen? And the person like wigged out, like left a crazy, like, you heard the message, like we played this message around, like left this crazy message, like wigging out. And then at the very end, and like I would say she's like our age, right? At the very end saying, how could you do this? It was my birthday weekend. And we were like, how old are you? Right? Now the cousin of grown ass woman is sending our friend messages saying, you were wrong to question my cousin. And it was her birthday weekend. And I was like, this is still going on. Like, how many months? Like, he just told me yesterday. I was like, what? Um, and I said, crazy person. I'm like, just don't engage in it. Like, just let it roll off your back. But at the same time, like, how does one deal with, like, because people have crazy people come into their life. How does I say don't give them time?
Yeah, I think there's two solutions. One is to just not engage at all,
Yeah.
and the other is if it's somebody that that's a friend that you need to engage with, just be direct. No,
Well,
don't.
he was direct, and she went like ape shit
Then it's time
nuts.
to not then don't engage again.
And then me, how I handled it, I thought it would be funny. And maybe this
You went
shows
down
my
the
dark
trolling
humor.
route.
Yeah, I decided to go down the trolling route, and I
That's
just
another
decided,
solution. Wind them up even more, make them even more
because
crazy.
you know why? Is that wrong? Because it was just like, how could you like, why, like, how could you leave this poor person like this crazy ass message, like, and just scream about your birthday? Like, please say alcohol was involved, because like, and I told our friend, I said, that's narcissism right there. Right? Like, it was my birthday. That's total narcissism. And I'm like, and
Well, it wasn't just birthday.
you
Was it
can't deal with
birthday
that.
week or birthday month? Which
Yeah.
is who
It was
even
like,
has that?
not even my kid has that. Like, that's kind of like, I don't even celebrate birthdays, because I went around the sun. Yeah, yay. Like, I don't. It's time is not linear to me. Like, it was just quite bizarre. Yeah. So I went down the trolling route, and I decided to, every 2 hours for the next 24 hours, to release a video of a band or an artist that had some song related to being crazy, which apparently also made cousin angry that he and I did that. And it's like, we didn't name her. Like, nobody named her.
Yeah,
Like,
but
if she
surely the
saw
intent
herself
was
in
to
that, right?
further enhance
Yeah,
the
like,
craziness.
right? Like,
Yeah,
nobody mentioned her. It wasn't directed. It wasn't dedicated. Nobody mentioned this person's name. But if you found yourself in, you know, 12 posts about crazy, well, what's that say about you? Like, I'm not a mean person, but I just thought, you know, first of all, you got a person that's like, I don't know, talking smack about somebody else that they don't know for reasons and he tried to tell me at first. He's like, I think it's because of this. And I'm like, you could stop yourself. I don't care. Like, I just don't like, I don't care. If people are like that, I don't care. If somebody doesn't like me, I don't care. I'm concerned about the B people. But when people get kind of crazy and they like do make my friends feel bad, then I'm just like, oh, now I'm going to troll. Now I'm going to amplify. And my son is the same way.
You
And
know what?
you
I
know
was just going to
this.
say a lot. I was going to point out to you because I didn't know if it needed pointing out. A lot of your son's behavior you blame on his father. You say, oh, that's his dad's side. That's from his dad. I say, no, that's 100% bollocks. It's from you.
I
He would
do
do.
see that. I
I'm
mean, and I
surprised
don't
he
know. I
didn't
don't
get in
blame
on the
his father
action.
all the time. It's just like a joke. I'm like, oh, that comes from your father's side. Well, no, like most of the like the dumb things, that's just a joke too. But then like, yeah, like overdosing on allergy pills can correlate to his mother overdosing on vitamin C. Sure, I
Yeah,
can concede that.
it's like the least cool, you know, overdoses ever.
He, no, no, no. We found one. We found one like, I don't know, like 3 weeks ago. We were watching the news and somebody overdosed on a fat jab. Didn't know you can overdose on a fat jab, but you could overdose on a fat jab. And
Yeah,
we
like
say
what
that
happened? The liver.
trumps our to overdose. We literally said out loud, we have found somebody dumber than both of us that have found a more dumbass way to overdose.
I don't know if it's dumber. It's on a par. It's certainly in that group of stupid overdoses.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, and
vitamin C.
his was just like, and his, and just to be
And he
clear
was
and for
kept in hospital
context,
overnight, right?
yeah, just for clear context, my child wasn't like trying and attempted to. He was just like, my nose is running. I took an allergy pill. It was still running. I took another one. It was still running. And I said, and like he took five. And I said, and he told every teacher, he's like, I took allergy pills because my nose is running. They're like, you need to go to the nurse. And and I said, why did you take so many? And he goes, well, like sometimes like I can take two Tylenols because I'm a big guy now and they're big pills and I thought these were little pills. I'm like, there's no correlation between pill size and dosage.
Yeah,
It's they're different medicines, child. And that's the time where I say that comes from his father. That's got to come from his dad. But no, I know because
yeah,
look
the
at me and
vitamin C. Well, yeah.
the vitamin C. Um, Speaking of kids, do you notice, and one thing that I do notice that and I'm kind of hopeful about kids these days is that they're not as they don't post as much. Like I'm talking about high school generation. I don't think they're generation alpha. I think they're generation Z now or something. They don't post as much. And I think that that's kind of cool. Like I don't it's funny that remember we were talking about Brooklyn Beckham calling out his parents and saying that he felt very performative, and that they were very performative. And he felt like all the posts that they put out as a family felt very performative. But let me just point out in the meantime that he and his wife post these very posed up pictures of them kissing or cuddling, which also seemed like why would you stop in the middle of kissing and like, oh, let me get my camera and take, that's so it's like it's funny that you would call your parents performative. But I first heard the term performative by Angus and his best friend, and they were talking about performative males, and because they were dressed in pink shirts. I'm sorry to say, shorts like yours, Crocs, um,
I never wear
glasses.
Crocs.
No, you don't wear Crocs, but they had like like what you love you got. Well, me and my mom are actually fighting over this right now. You got this for me in California, but all the performative males have this kind of bag, and inside the bag is a copy of Pride and Prejudice. And I was like, "What are you boys talking about?" And came over and he had Pride and Prejudice, and I was like, "Are you reading that?" And he's like, "No, not really." And I'm like, "Then why
This
do you
is an
have it?"
accessory.
He said to sit on the train. And I said,
Yeah,
"And do what?" And he's like, "Have it." And I said, "For what reason?" He's like, "To be a performative male." And I was like, "What are you boys on about?" And they're like, "We're into the performative male stage." I'm like, For what? Like I don't understand them sometimes. I'm like, "For what?" And they said they were just trying to point out two performative males that they were kind of mocking. That I didn't get it, but that was the first time I've heard of this like performative. Like this is a new language, and I just thought it is funny though. Like I notice on their Instagrams, they don't have curated. They don't post anything. They don't curate anything, and I actually felt kind of hopeful because I think for so long, um, it has been a very kind of curated. This is our life. Our life is perfect.
Yep,
Um,
propaganda.
right? Even my mother every day, she's like, "Can you go on and like my stuff on Facebook so that I can get into the algorithm?" And I said, "You're just posting AI photos of our family." And she's like, "Because you and Angus don't want your pictures posted." And I'm like, "So you go and make AI photos of us?" And she's like, "Because
Yeah,
it's not you." And I'm like, "That's just worse. Like, it doesn't
yeah,
even look like us." It's just like it's worse. It's like even worse than not posting our pictures. And like it's very hard to get her to understand like we don't want our pictures posted. Like we just me and him are not like that, and she very much wants to do that. That goes back to the whole narcissism thing of that generation,
yeah.
of like we have this it's a you know what's her name? Bouquet,
Oh yeah, hyacinth bouquet.
Hyacinth Bouquet.
Yeah,
And keeping up
Mrs.
the
Bucket.
appearances,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's very much like that. It's very and there are a lot of I think there are a lot of modern family. It's not just old people. I mean, there are a lot of families that like to portray a very perfect, curated family, and it seems like this next batch of kids in high school right now seem to recognize that, and I'm very hopeful. Like I'm like that's actually kind of cool that they're more into authenticity. And I'm like, that's cool. Like I like that. That makes me hopeful because I mean there is some generations of stuff that I'm like, what are you people like on? I mean, I think they got over woke. I mean, you're trying to cancel Disney's aristocrats on behalf of Thai people because of the Siamese cats, and Thai people are like, we've got no problem with the cats. Like white people, stop trying to speak for us
yeah.
and cancel stuff that we have no issue with. It's like I don't think Thai people have a lot of issues with many things.
No, very chill.
It's very chill. The last thing I want to talk to you because I know that you're going to leave, and it's only because it kind of goes full circle. It is today and yesterday were parent teacher conference at my child's school, and to make it quicker the time and I get it now and it makes sense that they've done this since COVID at a lot of schools. It's online so that you could just say that we have this time and then it's sorry, next family's coming on, you got to go. And I that makes sense because if you're in person, man, people can really
Yep.
and two of us being people that have worked in education, I think that it's no big secret. It's not a favorite time of year for teachers because you've got some parents that want to know every little detail. And I get it. They want to be a part of the whole thing. But then I think that there's a whole other set of parents that are like me. I'm very stressful as a parent every time it comes out because I don't want to do it. And the reason I don't want to do it is I kind of feel like I have no choice in this country, but I have to pay for a private school. There's not a choice, but I kind of feel like I pay for an education. You should, like, I trust you, or I wouldn't send my child to your school. So it's all good. And I trust him. I think he'll figure it out. Like, I don't need to, but then I feel like, oh, they're going to think I don't care. And for some reason, like, that stresses me. And my introduction to you was this very season. And it was during COVID, and I did not want to do it at all. And my son at the time, this is before my son was very vocal about just don't do it, mom. But he was like, oh, you're supposed to do a parent teacher conference with, Mr. D. Um, and I was like, oh, I was so stressed. I was so stressed because math was never my thing. Um, and I didn't like I didn't know what to like. I didn't know what to ask. I was like, I felt like I needed to research math and math concepts and the curriculum at the time to even have a conversation to know what to ask so I didn't feel dumb. And I remember I was so stressed going into the meeting. And then our first meeting was like this, it was online. And you had that same face that you have kind of now,
A face, yeah.
which is resting judgment face, I call it
Yep.
RJF.
I'm very
And
proud of that. Keeps a
I
lot of
felt
people at bay. Like, yeah.
I was terrified. Absolutely terrified. I was totally scared. I didn't know what to ask you, and my questions were stupid. Like, uh, is he at the level that like I didn't know what to ask. Um, my question is, do you as a teacher care whether or not like do you ever look at a parent and go, oh, they don't care, they don't show up to these things, or does it not matter to you at all?
Um, I think it would be unusual to have zero contact with a parent. It doesn't necessarily, and I always say it doesn't have to be at these specific parent teacher conferences. Now, if it's just an email, like, no, I think he's a dumbass. Do you agree? Like, yeah. I think to have no contact with parents would be a little bit weird, maybe given the context of international schools. Um, but yeah, I think these prescribed days that you have to do the conferences are inorganic.
Yeah. Do you think that, I mean, if a kid is doing well, they're doing as they're expected to. Do you and the parents aren't asking, do you feel obligated or need to give updates on it? Or do you ever ask like, oh, I wonder why this parent's not asking about it? Because I'll tell you, I work in education. I worked in education and I never really thought to ask because like I said, I thought, I'm paying like and it wasn't that I didn't care about, but like I can talk to him and have a conversation with him, and I think I didn't believe, because in my case I didn't believe that a test or even whether he turned in homework or not was going to speak to his abilities. Like I didn't turn in a lot of homework, but I tested well all the time because I just remembered stuff. But homework seemed like sometimes a stupid chore of like, we just learned this in class. Why are we doing this? Like, I was that kid that's like, this doesn't make sense. Like, why are we doing this when we just did it? And I didn't have a teacher say when I was young, because some people need to repeat it for it to stick in their brain, which would have just been an easy answer. They were just like, because it's homework, you have to. And then it just made me feel like I hate homework. Like homework sucks.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I would
do you,
contact parents if it benefited the student. So if they've put a lot of effort in and they're improving, so not necessarily at the level, but improving, I could send an email
yeah,
home and say, I've noticed that so and so is trying really hard. They've really improved. Now, please, could you say, well done from me? And that increases the student's motivation. And no, the flip
I
side of
didn't
that
get
as
any of
well.
those messages from you.
Well, yeah, correct. The flip side of that, well, you got those. It's no, capable but not trying. Please, can
Yeah.
you give them a bit of a kick up the backside?
I got those from you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely got
Which
those. And
again, it benefits the student because
yeah, yeah,
it makes them realize that I don't think they're a dumbass, that they can improve and they're capable.
yeah,
They're just not putting the effort in.
yeah. And and that's the thing. I think that he, um, I mean, he always had great things to say about you, and it's like even though you were hard on him and strict on him and would say, like he didn't always get the best grades initially on it because whatever it still, I still found that he was trying to impress you to do a good job just because he found you likable as a teacher, like, and the little things that like even like I know that his laptop used to have a whole bunch of stickers, like band stickers. And it was because of COVID. We discovered Lazada, And we found like for, I don't know, $3, you could get 100 band stickers of like random, like every random band. So he bought it, covered the thing. And I remember he came home like so stoked. He's like, oh, Mr. D asked me today, my math teacher today asked me about, I had this Smith sticker or I had this Depeche Mode sticker, and he asked me about it. And he was like, so like he had to connect to you then, and then it became different. And I think that that's so important for teachers to connect with students, because I find that when they do connect with students, I know when I connected with teachers, I wanted to go above and beyond. You know, I think that's one of the easiest way for kids to do better is to connect with a student, you know,
No, I
or
agree.
connect
So
with a
I
teacher.
think, yeah, some teachers teach the subject and some teachers teach the students. And I think there's a huge difference.
And I think, and students aren't dumb. There was a lovely woman. Shout out to Miss Ann. She knows who she is. Um, where a lot of students felt she was hard. She was a hard teacher, but at the same time, they said she really cares though. Like they could recognize that she really cared, despite the fact that she was really hard, and they felt they wanted to impress her and they wanted to do better. They wanted to try better. And then when they had teachers they didn't like, they didn't care.
Yeah.
And
Well, I
I
think if they
hear
had
that all the
teachers they
time.
didn't like, they'd do the opposite. They'd self sabotage almost to do badly in that subject.
Yeah. Um, do you like that you taught very different from me? I had primary, which is lovely, primary and early years, and you taught the high school and middle school. And you've only done that, right? You've never done primary,
I've
correct?
done
Or have
upper
you?
primary. Yeah.
Do you do you find do you like doing primary or do you like doing secondary?
Both. I think
Yeah.
they all have a very immature sense of humor and they're very realistic,
Yeah.
just like me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's very wholesome.
It's wonderful because I taught primary, and I teach from nursery, and then it would go to year 6, which is like basically elementary school. Um, but when they after they graduated from year 6 and they went on to high school, and they were now your students, a lot of times they would come back to our campus after school because the bus brought them back to our campus because they lived closer to us or they had siblings that went to us. And so I'd always hear, the stuff from the high school. But it was such a lovely thing to seeing them grow and knowing them from when they were in primary to seeing their sense of humor like develop in secondary. And I think that it would be so fun to teach secondary. I never got
Yeah,
to teach secondary.
yeah. No, it is. It's great fun. No, a
Yeah.
lot of the time, it's like a comedy show, just a backwards and forwards between the students, and you can control that environment. So it's not just a sterile learning environment; it's a safe environment where people can say what they think to a certain degree
Yeah.
and enjoy being there. And it's like its
Yeah.
own mini society.
It is. It's a lovely thing. I mean, I do think it's a lovely thing, and I love seeing them. I mean, I kind of see it because all the kids, like all my child's friends, a lot of them I taught. So it's nice seeing them grow up and seeing how they are and seeing their personalities and stuff like that. But yeah, I was just kind of wondering, if there was a preference on that kind of stuff.
No, I think every year group has characters, and that's what makes it worthwhile.
I can't. I mean, there's really not a lot of other things. Oh, did you hear? You might. I don't think that you would be interested, but it was an interesting thing to read. The Four Seasons hotel chain. They've made a, well, it's more of like a yacht. It's more like a Bezos super yacht, but it's their version of a cruise, and they've just released it, and I thought, okay, that's interesting. It's got 95 suites. The average suite is 550 square feet, but they have a super VIP suite which is like 10,000 square feet, and it's got its own pool, and it cost about 23,000 pounds, which is something like 30,000 US for a 7-day cruise. And what do you think about that? Because I was thinking, man, even with all that money, even if I had all that money to just take a 7-day cruise, I would not want to be around. If you got 95 suites, you got double the people. I wouldn't want to be around 200 people on
It's like paying to be
small
in
moving,
Alcatraz. Yeah, there's no escape.
right?
Yeah,
Have you ever been on a cruise?
no, and I never will.
Yeah, I never will either. But I know a lot of people that's the vacations that they take.
Yeah, but they like people. They like being around people.
Yeah. I don't understand. I don't understand that. That's so foreign to me. Like you like being around people.
Yeah.
I
Do you
like
want to join in these
hearing
fun arranged activities? No, thank you.
and I just saw that there was a bunch of people very upset with one of the cruise lines, like Carnival Cruise Lines or something, because Carnival Cruise Lines at one of their restaurants was imposing a dress code. People were they were saying we're not going to book with Carnival anymore. And it was like, wait a second, there's usually like 20 restaurants on there and it was just like one.
Come on.
I wanted to ask you about, because you and me are people that like to wear casual stuff. We're t-shirt lovers, both of us. My mother is a person that like she dresses very nicely. She's very in Thai, they would say high so in terms of she can
Proper.
dress very
Yeah.
nicely, right? But she's a t-shirt wearing person. My son's a t-shirt wearing person. Do you find that though in society that sometimes that we've gone too casual?
No, I don't know. It's like in Walmart, you see people in pajamas and things. Maybe that's slightly,
Okay,
not
my
even
I
that.
guess my question is traveling. Like my son was talking about, me and him were talking about it because I said we were talking about Pan Am Airlines. I saw something the other day and I was like, I've been on Pan Am Airlines. That's how old I am. I've flown on Pan Am and I said times are different though. And he said, how so? I said, man, it wasn't a common thing. Not everybody could travel. It wasn't as available. And so when people traveled, they dressed nicely. He's like, I would just wear pajamas and stuff. I said, every time I travel, I try to dress well. And he said, why? And I said, I don't know. Like he's like, who are you trying to impress? I said, it's not really to impress anybody. I think I'm just trying to be, I don't know, respectful. And he was grilling me. He's like, respectful to who? And I'm like, I don't know, to society. Like, he's like, but what would dressing nice do as opposed to if you wanted to wear sweats? And I said, I don't know, that it just seems like if you're going to go on a trip with a bunch of strangers that I don't know, like I wanted to be more presentable. And he said it didn't make sense. And as he was saying that, I'm like, yeah, I guess it doesn't make sense. But I thought, well, it doesn't hurt to look your best, right? On the flip side, my mom is very, very much that way of every day. It doesn't matter that she's 82. She says every day she gets up, she puts on makeup, whether she feels or not, and she dresses nice. And she says, I don't let myself go. I remember one day I came down, I had no makeup, I was still in pajamas, and she came and she said, you need to work on yourself. She's like, you're looking a little weathered. And I said, I just woke up. She goes, I don't wake up without looking my best every day. And you should remember that. And I said, like went around like feeling bad. Like, do I look awful? Like that's terrible. Um, but it is an interesting conversation of, do you think that us as a society that we've gone so casual, like even people going out to dinner, like I've seen people go out to dinner. Like when I was young, if you went out to Benihana's, when I was young, people dressed up because back in the day, Benihana's was a little bit pricey to go to Benihana's is like a Japanese restaurant where there's like, I think 10 on each side seats and the cook cooks in front of you and it's this presentation. But people used to pay good money. It could cost almost, like 50 to 60 bucks a person, like for food. And so people dressed up nice. But towards the end of like 15 years ago, going to Benihana's, people were like in California casual flip flops and shorts, and it was okay. And I just thought, am I old fashioned and thinking it was nicer whenever? And then sometimes when you look at they have a lot of old video restored on Instagram and things where you see 1918, old film, and they've restored it of how society dressed back in, and people had top hats and coats and stuff. Do you think it's sad the decline of, I don't know, the dressing up?
Yes and no. I mean, I always dress for comfort rather than to be
Yes, I
try to
know
impress
because
anyone.
my mother points
Yeah.
it out.
Yes. Like when I flew to California, I was just, because going from Bangkok to California, the climate change wasn't extreme. But I forgot that I had to change in Tokyo. And Tokyo in February is
Oh,
quite
was it
cold.
cold?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I always go for comfort when I'm flying. But I think if everybody else was dressed smartly, I would feel the obligation to dress smartly.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems I've just noticed that kind of decline of dressing. And I'm not saying that it's wrong. I just noticed it. I think that maybe I'm nostalgic in the sense of, oh man, people looked really sharp in the 20s and 30s. And when I think back of like, if we look 100 years from now, 200 years from now, when they look at the snapshot at this time, we look kind of slop. And like, look at me, I'm in a flannel, I wear t-shirts. We look a little bit sloppier. And I'm like, I wonder if that's cyclical, if it'll change, if we'll go back to dressing to the nines. Are we going to go back to, if you saw the Planet of the Apes from the 70s where they showed like the future society underground and everyone's got like gray capes and stuff like that. Like
Yeah,
I wonder
uniform.
about that a lot. Like, are we going to get like that? Is it gonna, like, me and my son were talking about the other day, like what's it gonna be like on this planet 500 years from now? Do we were talking about, do we think everything's gonna be like concrete and this, almost remember how northern England was after World War II, where everything was like gray and structured and industrialized, and because they were just making things for the war. So it was very industrial, like, because we have in front of us a major SkyTrain hub, or a major train hub. And as we were walking by it, I said, I kind of love the juxtaposition as we were looking at it at night, because all the lights were on and we saw these two escalators and they were going in opposite directions, and we were seeing some people come up, and it was all glass, and we were appreciating the aesthetic of it. We're like, that's a really cool aesthetic as we were walking home. But then we're looking around, and like I said, the lovely thing about Bangkok is that you have mansions next to dilapidated homes. And so it was just like, here's this kind of very future, almost brutalist architect type thing, and then we've got these very kind of old modern houses. And so we were talking about, I wonder what it's going to be. Is it going to be more like that, or is everything going to be overgrown and it's all greens because we all nuked each other? And he said a very sad thing. He said, I feel that a nuke will probably go off in my lifetime, he said. And I'm like, oh, that's crazy, because one has not, well, one from war has not gone off in my lifetime. I've been close to, well, I've been in the proximity of Chernobyl. We were in the Philippines at the time, and I've been in proximity of Fukushima. We were here in Bangkok at the time. So like I told him, I said, I've had 2 possible doses of radiation that can make me dumber. I said, that old woman over there, she's
Were
got
you
like,
pregnant at the time?
no. But I told him, I said, see, I told him, I'm like, see, you're not out of the woods. You've got Fukushima. You've got that. That's part of your problem. I said, I got Fukushima, Chernobyl. She's got Fukushima, Chernobyl, World War II. Like she's got Hiroshima. She's got 4 Nagasaki. She's got 4 exposed to that type of thing. But it's a scary reality to think about what it's going to be like in 500 years. I'm curious. I am curious. I do wonder what it's going to be like. Is it going
Indeed.
to be Jetsonsy? Or are we going to revert back to like Flintstone-y?
Probably some combination. Maybe some Jetsons and some Flintstones in the
Is it
same
going to be like
society.
Mandalorian,
The Wild West.
Wild West? Which, they're coming out with the Mandalorian Grogu series. So I'm excited about that. If people haven't watched it, I highly recommend, because it's different from the Star Wars. It's like a spaghetti western, and I think that it's genius how they've written it. Absolute genius how they've written it. Because it is it. How could you take something from a franchise that's so popular for one thing and kind of repackage it? Genius. John Favreau's done a great job. So should I let you go now? Okay.
Please release me.